There was once a young man who wanted to be a businessman. So he got a job with a large company. And one day he had coffee with the CEO of the corporation. And he said, "Mr. Johnson, I want to ask you an important question." "Okay." He said, "What's the secret to success in business?" And the boss said, "Well, making wise decisions." The young man said, "That's great. How do you make wise decisions?" And the old man said, "Poor decisions." You learn from your poor decisions. The Bible is no different. We've got a whole book full of people. Some of the greatest people who ever lived. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and David, and Peter, and John, and some of the greats. And yet, a lot of them made poor decisions. It was expensive. What is wisdom? Wisdom includes knowledge, but they're not synonymous. What is wisdom? When the Bible talks about wisdom.
Doing things God's way.
Yeah, doing things God's way. So we have to learn the scriptures and to learn what God would do in situations. How do I treat this situation? If somebody cusses me out, what do I do? What does a wise person do? If somebody cuts you off in traffic, what's the wise thing to do? Yeah. So one of our major goals is to seek wisdom. How to make proper decisions. And so we're looking for a few weeks at poor decisions. People in the Bible who made poor decisions. And we want to analyze where they went wrong, what they should have done differently, because that's how we learn. The Bible says that all those things were included for what purpose? For our learning. Jesus said those things are written there for our learning. So that's what we're doing, is we're looking at these things. We come to an interesting story in Joshua chapter 7. When the Israelites had been delivered from slavery in Egypt, they crossed the desert and they spent 40 years wandering. Why? Because they'd made some poor decisions. Yeah, they disobeyed God. They had complained and griped. And so finally God told them, "Okay, you can wander around the desert 40 years. Maybe you'll learn something." Finally, time came for them to cross into Canaan and conquer the land. So God took them up the east side of the Jordan River, and they crossed the Jordan close to the city of Jericho. Jericho was the mightiest fortress in the world. It had walls 40 feet. That's just hard for me to imagine. Not 40 feet high, 40 feet thick. I mean, good night, what a wall. Wouldn't you like to be given a spear and said, "Go attack that 40-foot thick wall"? And while you're doing that, those guys on top of the roof are going to be throwing arrows and rocks and stuff down on your head. So God told them that you're going to take Jericho as your first objective, and I'm going to win the battle for you. So you remember the story. God told them to march around the city every day for 7 days, and then march around the city 7 times, and then blow the horns and shout, and the walls would fall down. But God had given them one command about Jericho. What was it? What did He tell them not to do? Don't take any of the valuables. Yeah. Why?
They'd start worship purpose.
God said, this is the first city, the first victory you're going to win. This one is mine. You leave everything alone. You don't take any of you kill the people, you burn the city, you can burn anything up you want to, just don't take any valuables. Ordinarily, when an army conquered a city, what did they do? You take everything. You take all the valuables, all the food, all the gold, all the silver. You carry off the pretty girls, you carry off whatever, all the animals. And God said, on the rest of the cities you can despoil. but Jericho belongs to me. And we're going to, do not take anything valuable out of the city. They all got the message. Everybody in the army understood. When we take Jericho, we don't take anything. But naturally, you've always got one guy. Achan happened to be in one of the ways that crossed into the city when the walls fell down. He was going through the city, burning and looting, or burning and killing people, and he came to a house. And in the house, he found some gold and some silver and some valuable clothes. And so he took them. Now, God had just told him not to. Why did he do that? Why would he do that? Why would a human do that?
He's human.
He's human. It's temptation. What did he see?
Gold.
Gold, silver. How do you leave that? I mean, we got to admit, that would be hard. If you see gold and silver just laying there, how would you not take it? So Achan took the gold and the silver, but he knew it was wrong. How do we know that?
God told him not to.
Well, that too. But how else did he know he wasn't supposed to have it? How can we tell from his behavior?
He hid it.
He hid it. He put it under his cloak. He took it back to his tent and buried it in the tent.
He's trying to sneak it.
Yeah. And he thought, someday nobody will notice. I'll just start borrowing some of the gold and silver out of my pile, and I'll live high and wide and healthy. I'll have a Rolex sundial and drive a BMW Chariot. I'll be living high on the hog. Unfortunately, one was watching. God Almighty. When they came up to their second city to be conquered, the city of Ai, they went out to attack, and what happened? This little bitty city of Ai, which couldn't muster a tenth of the troops Israel could, came out and whooped them. Several thousand Jews died, and it was horrible. And Joshua was fit to be tied. How could we lose that battle? We just took the mightiest city in the world, and now we let this little ragtag bunch of Boy Scouts whoop us. And so he talked to God, and God said, well, you got sin in the camp. Somebody disobeyed. What's one thing we need to know about disobeying God?
She's going to do this.
Always find out.
Consequences.
There's always consequences for disobedience to God. And that's what we need to learn from all of these people. If you disobey what you know God said, there's going to be consequences. And so, even once everybody knew that somebody had messed up, Achan would not come forward. And God had every one of the tribes pass by the leadership, and then he had each family pass by. Finally, they singled out Achan as the guilty party. What was the penalty? I mean, not only had they lost the next battle, what was the penalty for Achan?
Burned with fire.
He, his wife, his kids, his animals, all were put to death. They were stoned to death, burned with fire, and then piled a heap of stones. That seemed a little bit of overkill. Why did God make such a drastic decision on them?
Example.
Sir?
Example.
Example.
Get everybody else's attention.
Yeah. God didn't do it because the man's wife deserved it, or his kids, or his puppy dog, or his goldfish. He didn't kill them because of that. And this does not mean that they all went to hell just because of that. Now, he may have, but I don't think God held his wife and children at fault. But there are consequences. In our world, what if a man turns to alcohol and starts gambling, hunting family money away, and goes crazy? What happens to his family? They suffer. And so when we sin, sometimes innocent people suffer. Now, God will balance out the books in his way. But there are consequences. So Achan made a poor choice based on pure greed. He wanted the money. Why is that so hard for us?
You're a lot like that.
Yes, we are. If you were to ask the average person, just walk down the street and tap somebody on the shoulder and say, what would you like to have? More than likely, what's the first answer you're going to get? Money. Yeah, I wish I had more money. You know, if I had more money, most of us think if we just had enough money, all of our problems would be gone. Of course, we find out that's not necessarily true. Do you know what they found out about people who win the lottery?
Most of them are miserable.
Most of them wind up broke in a few years. Yeah. I have read how many football players in the NFL who made hundreds of millions of dollars today are dead broke. You know, we just don't know how to handle money very well. And it's easy for us to think, I can solve all my problems if I just had enough money. But Achan learned that's not necessarily the case. All right, this is another weird story. When God told Israel, you're going to cross the river, you're going to conquer all the Canaan, you're going to defeat all their armies, I'm going to give you victory after victory. And God gave them one peculiar command about the people of Canaan. What did he say? What command did God give Israel about all the Canaanites?
Destroy them.
Run them off or kill them. Do not let them stay in the land. Why? Because they will lead you astray. God knew their hearts. Now, in those days, people looked at gods differently than we do. In ancient times, for thousands of years, wherever you lived, you worshiped the gods of that land. The Egyptians had dozens of gods. The sun god, the moon god, the Nile River god, the alligator god, so forth. The Canaanites had their own gods. They had Baal and Asherah and Molech and several others. And God knew that the Israelites, if they went into Canaan and did not get rid of the adulterous worship, that many of his people would adapt that kind of worship. It's just nature of you know, if you move into another country and you think, well, I probably need to worship the gods here. Matter of fact, what did Pharaoh say about the God of the Israelites? Pharaoh said, I'm God. I'm the God of the most powerful nation on the planet. And I have all these other gods that are supporting me. And who is Jehovah? What's he known for?
You found out.
Slaves.
Yeah, in fact,
He's the God of slaves.
Right at the heart.
How can he be much of a God if he's a God of slaves? What's he ever done? You know, well, he found out the hard way that God is a little more. Matter of fact, every one of the plagues was what? All 10 plagues was what? There were attacks on different Egyptian gods. All 10 plagues attacked an Egyptian god. What was God showing them?
Your gods are false.
I'm the God.
I'm God.
All those gods you're worshiping, they're not really gods. Compared to me, they're nothing.
False gods.
Yeah. So, God told Joshua, when y'all cross into Canaan and you conquer city after city, you either kill them or run them off. Do not allow them to stay in Canaan or you will worship them. So, Joshua, I'm sure, had every intention of doing that. After a few battles, and Israel had won every one of them, there was a group of people that lived over the next hill. And they got to realizing, we can't defeat Israel. Israel's too powerful. She's got God on her side, a God on her side. Their armies are bigger than ours. This was the Gibeonites. And the Gibeonites decided, well, we better pull a trick. We can't match them militarily. And we either got to leave the country or we got to fool them. So they got this bright idea. We're going to trick the Israelites into believing that we're from a long, long way away. We're outside their realm. So they all dressed up in dirty, ripped up, old clothes. And they got some moldy bread, and they got some old water skins, and they came riding up on animals that were crippled and looked like they'd been a long way. And they came up, and Joshua, they were brought before Joshua, and Joshua said, guys, where are you from? Oh, we're from way over there, way beyond your realm. You won't ever get there. And we'd like to just sign a peace treaty with you. Well, that sounds reasonable. Most people don't like fighting, and so Joshua, I'm sure, had the right motive. He was probably thinking, well, the fewer battles we have to fight, the fewer casualties we have, and so be it. So he signed a peace treaty with the Gibeonites. And then when they topped the next hill, what did they find? Gibeah, right there. And so Joshua realized he had been tricked, but he had already signed the treaty, giving his word and Israel's word that they would not attack the Gibeonites. Yes?
Seems to me like if somebody lies to you and you give them your word.
That ought to break the covenant? Yeah. Well, I agree with you. I'm sure if I lied on my house application, the bank would be happy to find some reason to punish me for that. But in this case, he had made an agreement with the Gibeonites that they would not fight them. And God had warned them. What was the penalty that God put on Israel for Joshua's failure? And what does the Bible say he did wrong? He did not inquire of the Lord. If he had just gone, if he just told the Gibeonites, you wait a minute, I'm going to go ask God about this, then God would have said, no, don't sign a treaty with these people. They're just over the hill. But Joshua didn't do it. Why? What's the mistake that Joshua made that we can make real easy? Didn't consult God. Sometimes we make some really important decisions without consulting God. When I was looking for a wife, I prayed real hard to God because I knew that marriage was going to be a challenge. And I prayed hard to God. I said, God, I want to find a girl that can live with me for 50 years. And we have something to talk about for 50 years. If I'd only known the girl he sent me could talk by herself for 50 years. You're still talking, that's right. But I believe God gave me a great marriage because I prayed hard about getting married to a good girl that would help me grow and become a Christian. And I really do. Well, Joshua found out that you have to inquire of the Lord. If you're not sure, and particularly in the days when God answers your prayers right on the spot, at any rate, what happened because of his sin? What happened because he did not inquire of the Lord? How were they punished?
Gibeonites were made slaves.
That's true too. Well, yeah, the Gibeonites were punished, but how was Israel punished for failure to inquire of the Lord? The text says that many of the Israelites turned to the idols of the Canaanites. Exactly what God had told them, why they got to get rid of them. If you don't, they will be a stumbling block for you. Many of your people will turn to worshiping false gods. And how long did that last? How long did they have a problem worshiping Canaanite gods? Forever. For 1,500 years they struggled with worshiping the Canaanite gods. How often do we hear about Baal worship in the Old Testament? How often do we hear about Asherah worship? How often do we hear about Molech? Over and over and over. If Joshua had done what God said, what would have happened?
I can't believe those people were that dumb.
I know.
If you can talk to God, He'll answer you.
Why not?
Come on,
yeah.
Wake up.
Yeah.
We got to do it by faith. He don't.
Yeah.
We got to wait on it and see if He'll leave man.
That's true.
Especially
But they
Joshua knew he would talk to God. Joshua had been, since the death of Moses,
That's true.
talking with God.
That's true. Yeah. But why he made this choice when God had told him,
Without
don't.
consulting.
Yeah, and then he didn't even consult him.
Right.
What could be an answer here that we need to be careful of?
Well, it was their faith in them, because, you know, they had to believe that he had that connection to God.
Yeah,
And so, you know, they didn't all have that.
right. That's true.
And so it wasn't just, their belief in another person, because they didn't all have that. They had more than what we got
Yeah,
today.
that's true.
We need to not think that we don't need God's guidance.
Yes, that's the danger. I'm sure Joshua thought, well, I can make this
I can make
decision,
this
no big
decision,
deal.
right.
I can tell these people are really from far, yes.
Yeah, I don't see how I really have to look into the mind of those people, because every tribe, before they went into Jericho, was told by Joshua, everyone will be held accountable.
Yes.
Everyone.
Yes.
Even the clans
Yes.
inside the tribe
Yes.
would be held accountable.
Yes.
So these guys are just idiots.
Well, there's a lot to that.
That's it. You know,
Well,
if you're an idiot, you
If you're an
suffer.
idiot, you make stupid choices. That's right. Well,
Talk about bad choices.
I mean, ordinarily, Joshua was one of the great heroes of the Bible. But here, he just fell apart. Sometimes we get to thinking we're smarter than we are. I know that that's rare, but sometimes people think they're pretty smart. And I'm sure Joshua thought, I'm in charge. I know what I'm doing. I don't really need to go ask God about this. I'll just make this choice. And it cost Israel dearly. You wonder how many thousands or tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of Jews lost their lives, lost their religion, lost their faith because of this choice that Joshua made. If he had gotten rid of every Canaanite, how hard would it have been for them to adopt foreign policies? It'd been hard for them to worship false gods without somebody there to represent them.
There was another thing about that. They had just executed judgment on
Achan?
Achan.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
Israel's the one that killed him and his family.
Yes.
And yet they didn't think they'd get stoned for doing something stupid.
You don't know what goes through people's minds.
Well,
That's
you
why
know,
I think, yeah.
the other side of the story. It must have been another side of the story. We didn't have.
There had to be something, it's like you're saying, he had just shortly before, he had seen what God did when Moses displeased him. Just by not following a simple commandment.
Yeah, with striking a rock.
So why wouldn't Joshua be extra careful to follow everything that God said?
Yeah.
And even if the temptation came into his mind, oh, I can handle this. No, I better not. Let me ask God and see what he thinks.
Yeah.
No, he just,
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, that's what I'm saying. There should have been a sermon in here by Joshua somewhere
there's something missing.
Yeah.
before all that happened. You know.
Yeah, that's true.
Got to be a big sermon in here.
Yeah, there ought to be, yeah.
I'd like to know the method to his madness.
Yeah. At any rate, his poor choice, his poor decision was catastrophic for Israel.
Yes.
I mean, for the next 1,500 years, Israel fought the plague of false gods. And if he had just done the right thing here, they wouldn't have had those gods. It is crazy. This next one, I don't understand too well. This is one of those I want to ask God when I get to heaven.
Yes.
Exactly what was going. You'd like to have a little more information. King David was a great leader. When Saul died, King David took over. He ran the country. The armies of Israel spread out and conquered everybody around them. They were prosperous. They were the most powerful nation on the planet. They were doing great. And then one day, David got the bright idea. He called in his chief army commander. He said, I want you to go throughout the land, throughout Israel and throughout Judah, and count all the fighting men. Count them. And his second in command said, oh, king, said, may you be great, may your army multiply, but why do you want me to do this thing? He knew something was wrong. The text does not really say. And so David said, no, I want you to go do it. So they went and counted all the fighting men of Israel. He had like 800,000 in Israel and 500,000 in Judah. I mean, you had 1,000,003 men. But then God became very angry with David. And he said, I'm going to give you a choice of 3 punishments. You get the one you want. Either you can, there'll be a big famine for years, or either you're going to have to flee for your life, or you're going to be an outcast and a hunted fugitive, or there's going to be a big plague come on the land. And David said, well, I don't want to be chased around the country, which interesting because later on his own son chased him all around the country. And so he picked the plague. 70,000 Israelites died within 3 days because David counted. Now, why did God get so angry about counting? I mean, what king doesn't know how many soldiers he's got? Why was this upsetting to God?
His focus mainly was on his strength, his power.
Okay, I think you're on the right track. When Israel conquered Canaan, God told them, now you're going to conquer some mighty armies. And some of them are going to have cavalry. You don't have cavalry. The Israelites didn't have cavalry. They were all foot soldiers. And some of them are going to have chariots. They're mighty, they're like tanks today. Now, he says, when you conquer people with cavalry, war horses, or chariots, you hamstring the horses. Now, what does that mean? Yeah, you cut the tendon in the back of the leg. What does that do to them?
Disables a horse.
They can still plow,
But he can't run.
but they can't run. And it's hard to have a cavalry that walks into battle. And God said, you don't have cavalry. I don't want you to have cavalry. And every chariot that you capture, you destroy it. I don't want you to have chariots. Why would God make such a foolish decision? I think you're on the right track.
Depends on who you trust.
God said, yeah, I don't want you to have superior weapons. I want you to depend on me.
I'm your superior.
I'm your superior weapon. That's right. Whatever battle I'm part of, you're going to win. You don't need cavalry. You don't need chariots. You don't need to go around saying, well, look, we won because we had great... No. So God said, what you're doing is you're taking the focus off of me and my protection and my winning of battles, and you're putting it on superior technology.
It'd be more than just them doing that too. It'd be all the lands.
Yes, yes, yes. Israel doesn't have cavalry. They don't have chariots, but they still win every battle. Their God must be really good, and that's what God wanted. God wanted the Israelites to depend on Him. He said, you don't worry about it. I got this covered. Lots of times Israel went into battle heavily outnumbered, but it didn't matter. This is one of my favorite stories. King Nebuchadnezzar. In Daniel chapter 4, at this time in history, Daniel had been carried off by the Babylonians into captivity early. Now the Babylonians had invaded Israel from the north in 805 BC. Israel did not fight. Why? Because King Nebuchadnezzar's army was vast, and they knew they couldn't win. So they went ahead and surrendered. And King of Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar, he was the mightiest warrior on the planet. He had the greatest army. And so he hit them with, like a tariff, but what do you call it when you charge another country to pay you not to attack them? Tribute. They had to pay tribute. And so the Israelites paid tribute to Babylon for years. And the Babylonians carried off some of the young people from Israel. And Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were amongst that group. And so King Nebuchadnezzar, for many years, was the greatest power on the planet. He was the king of the world. He ruled most of it. And he thought his country was the greatest that ever lived, and it was awesome, and so forth. And then one day, King Nebuchadnezzar was walking on the roof of his palace. His palace was one of the 8 wonders of the world. I mean, it was just covered acres and acres, and it was just made out of marble and gold, and it was incredible. And the king was standing on his roof, looking out over the city of Babylon, thinking, man, what have I done? I have built the greatest empire in the history of the world. My armies are great, and I'm so wonderful. Man. But what did he neglect?
He thought he was in charge.
He thought he was in charge. He forgot to give glory to God. He thought he was really something else. He was special. And God said, okay, we'll see how special you are. So he put a curse on Nebuchadnezzar, and for 7 years, he turned him into a beast. He got on his all fours, and he'd crawl around, and he would eat grass. Finally, after 7 years, what did he decide?
He might have been wrong.
Yeah, I might have been. I think I will give a little glory to God. Maybe he does get some of the credit. I don't think I would have taken 7 years to come to that conclusion. It's about like Jonah and the whale. I don't think I would have taken that long to come to the conclusion that I was doing the wrong thing. At any rate, in Daniel chapter 4, Nebuchadnezzar finally got it through his thick skull after 7 years that maybe there was somebody bigger than he was. Now, why is this a warning for us?
Not any more in charge than he was.
Sometimes we get prideful. Sometimes we think we're special and we're wonderful.
It might be worse now, and it might be continually getting worse because the world, we got
Yes.
so much stuff going on.
Yes, sir.
and everything happening.
Yes, sir.
I
Sure.
wish God would treat other country leaders the same way he treated Nebuchadnezzar.
Really?
That would be helpful. Maybe Putin needs to have come down a notch.
Amen.
Yeah. So we need to learn not only that we're not in charge, but we have to give God the credit. And this is something that I think a lot of people don't do. How often do we give God the credit for things that happen to us that are good?
See, that's the irony of Russia. Putin says he's a Christian.
Does he?
Yes, yeah, he has that church, that big Western church, that's a Catholic church.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, it's
Oh, the Russian Orthodox?
Yes, Russian Orthodox is
Really?
is Christian.
I didn't know that communists could be Christians.
Yeah,
I thought they were
Russian
atheists.
Orthodox teaches Christianity.
Well, I'm sure Putin does it because he feels like that's a political advantage.
There's an advantage.
I doubt seriously if he takes it too seriously, but he might. At any rate, the basic flaw here is Nebuchadnezzar did not recognize there's somebody bigger than he is. And you and I have to understand God is bigger than we are. He gets the glory. If we accomplish something great, it's not us doing it, it's God doing it. So, why do we have a problem with that?
Pride.
Pride.
P-R-I-D.
Do we like it when people tell us how wonderful we are?
Of course.
And if we make a good business deal and come out of it looking good, what do we tend to think?
I'm proud of myself.
Yeah,
What I did.
look what I did. Yeah, I was so smart.
Did all myself, all by
Yes.
myself.
All those pro athletes have that problem today, These guys think that,
Oh,
pay them
yes.
$55 million
Yes,
a year,
yes.
something like that.
That makes them special.
I'm special,
Yes, yes, that's
Where did
exactly,
that come from? I mean,
yeah, well, that's the point.
But I like what the wise man says, don't break your arm, pat yourself.
Yeah, break your arm, pat yourself on the back, yeah. Yeah, we got to first give God the credit for everything. Otherwise, we run the same risk that, what does God do to pride?
Put you in your place.
Yes.
Give you a fall after
The Bible says pride goes before a fall. So if you get too prideful, God's going to bring you down. All right, in 1 Samuel 8, the whole nation of Israel messed up. At this point in history, what was the government of Israel like? This is before the days of kings. Saul had not come to, they weren't alive yet.
There were judges,
Good
wasn't
times
There
with
were
judges.
judges. They weren't really the rulers. They just showed up to deliver Israel. Basically, who was running the program? God was. God was basically telling, he was guiding Israel through the priests and through the judges. They didn't really have a central government. And so what did the Israelites get the bright idea?
Oh, we need a king.
We need a king. Why? Why do they need a king? Everybody else had, oh, how often has that argument gotten us into trouble?
Everybody else is doing it.
Jump off a cliff.
Yeah. What did your mother always tell you when you said, well, everybody else did it? Yeah, if they jump off a bridge, you'll jump off one too? Yeah. And that's what God told Israel.
Oklahoma, and then United States actually.
Yeah.
Oklahoma, because they keep looking out and they say, well, you know, these further along, more advanced other states and stuff are doing this.
Yes.
And so we
Yes.
need to do that.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
luckily, we're about 5 years behind.
Yeah, we need to do that dumb thing.
It does the same thing, you know, it looks at
Yeah.
other countries, and
Yeah.
it's the same thing.
Yeah, but Israel wanted a king for military reasons.
That too. They said, we need a king to guide our armies. We need a king to,
They wanted a leader right there in front of them.
yes, somebody they could talk to.
Physical
So, yes,
leader.
yes. That's exactly right. And Samuel said to God, said, the people want a king, said, I'm sorry. And God said, it's not your fault. Said, it's them. Said, they're not rejecting you. They're rejecting me. Because everything Samuel said came straight from God. And so Samuel said, or God told Samuel, said, they're rejecting me as their king. And so God said, all right, they can have a king, but they're not going to like it. What's the king going to do? When you have a king, how do things change?
It's all the king's will.
King does things his way. And he will conscript your sons to fight in his battles. He will conscript your children to serve in the kingdom. He will take your daughters for his wives or to give away. He will tax you. Boy, I wish we had that option. I believe I could sell that now. We don't want a king. So God said, okay, you can have what you want, but you're not going to like it. And sure enough, they didn't like it. All right, we'll pick up there next time. I got a few more of these that I think you'll find interesting.